Hello, this is Karia again. I am doing today a fun video on shading. We're going to talk about what shading is, how to use it, and what are some of the benefits of shading. So let's get started. Okay, so first thing, I'm going to talk to you about what shading generally is and give you some examples of shading. So shading is generally just the concept of going from light to dark with a very light hand. So that's essentially what shading is. You can see here, this is a line done just with the lightest hand, laying down the lightest possible layer, and then this is going from light to dark. And I did this by laying down layers on top of each other, and that concept is called layering, and the two pretty much go hand in hand. And this is just laying down the darkest possible line in just one pass. So let me give you some examples of some of the things that I've done with shading. I'm by no means an expert and I'm not particularly good, but I still wanted to show you this so that you can see some of the things that I've learned. So I've done this here. Sorry, that's my cat having a ball. He was quiet all day until I started filming. Anyway, so you can see here how I shaded in the egg, and then I just went slowly from dark to light, or light to dark. And you can see one example of shading there. You can also see another example right here with this one, especially here you can see a lot of the shading. Here you can see some shading. And then just, you know, in various places you can see a little bit of the shading. One of the other things you can do with shading that I personally absolutely love is you can see here the black was not done all at once. It was actually done using the same processes that I'm going to teach you, by just slowly laying down the layers of black. And what I did here is I added colors. Oh, this is him. I don't know why he's making this racket right now, but that's him choosing right now to play. Ugh. Anyway, so this is just slowly laying down the black, and what I really love about this is you can get all sorts of different colors in there. I don't know if you can see, but there's some blue tones in there that I really love. I think this side shows the blue tones a little bit better, and then you can see here this was also done using shading and then getting progressively darker colors, but that's something that you can see that I have done. So that's just the general of what shading is and what some of the things that you can do with shading. So let's move on to the next question. So I'm going to talk to you really briefly about one of the other benefits of shading that I absolutely love, and also about using this light hand and going over it repeatedly to create these darker tones, as opposed to starting with the darkest tones. So one of the biggest benefits is, hold on, let me pull this out and get that back in to get my eraser. One of the biggest benefits is actually the ability to just be able to erase these light layers and go back in and make corrections, which is something that you can't do. Let me show you what happens if you try to do that here with this when you went in really dark. You see how it's, you know, this is just the nature of the colored pencil, but you can see how it's just dark and there's no, you know, that's always going to be back there even if you take off this top layer. But what you can do obviously is, if you start in this very light layer here, oops, let me lay it down here. If you start in this very light layer here, you can just go in and take that out, and that will mostly be gone. Let me show you. That will mostly be gone. You can see how that's mostly gone. And if I was being a little bit more thorough, I could go in there a little bit more and take out more of this. So that's one of the benefits, is that you can make these mistakes and you can sort of go back in, whereas if you start with this dark pressure, you're pretty much stuck with what you do. So it's less forgiving. Is what I'm saying. And even if you try to erase it here in this middle section, let me show you here in this middle section, you'll actually get better results. Even though this is just as dark, you'll actually end up getting slightly better results than if you just went with this darkest line. And I don't know if you can see that, but you can see that this is actually darker than this section right here, this darkest section right here, even though they were pretty much the same shade. So I'm going to explain to you how that works and what happens by showing you the structure of paper and the paper tooth. So that's going to be the next thing I'm going to talk to you about. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about paper and the tooth of the paper and what that means. I need to get a brush. And also, at some point, if you're watching this video before I've done my eraser review, it's coming up. But if you're watching this video after I've done my my video on erasers, there'll be a link to it at the bottom of this video that I'll put in when I actually get around to doing the eraser video. But anyway, so the way that paper looks to you on the surface is it looks like it's just a flat line. In actuality, what it looks more like is this, like this, with these hills and valleys, and the hills will all be the same size. It's just that I have no artistic talent, and they can be either really sharp, sort of going up and down and having extremely toothy paper, or they can be pretty mild, you know, like a little bit more flat by having that will make you a smoother paper. And there's a ton of different papers. When you start making your own art and you buy your own paper, you'll be absolutely overwhelmed by the sheer enormity of the different kinds of paper. But for adult coloring books, it's pretty much just whatever the books, you know, whatever paper they use for the books. But all paper has the same structure and has the same tooth. And the reason that the tooth is there, let me get a different color pencil so I can show you. The reason that the tooth is there is that if it's just like in the microscopic level, if it's just flat, what'll happen is the pencil will just glide right on out. By having this tooth structure in this way, let me see if I can find one that's more even. Section is a little bit more even. So what it does is that as you move the pencil across, the tooth pulls out the wax and the pigments from the pencil and lays down a line. So that's how a line actually works on the sort of microscopic, you know, unseeable level. That's sort of how the tooth works. And you can use this to your advantage. You know, one way, like I showed you here, is to be able to erase is just by laying down this little light line and going slowly. And the reason why it becomes difficult to erase when you've done this section of pressing down as hard as possible is that what you actually do when you do that is you actually flatten the tooth of the paper. So if you want to erase when you try to go back in, so I'm going to show you here, and I don't know if you can see it. When I go back in, I'm still having a fairly simple time of being able to lay down a mark. But here you can see that it doesn't want to take as much color. So that's part of the reason why I personally prefer to layer it as opposed to pressing down that one dark line, because even if you decide you want to erase it and you go back to it, it becomes much harder for it to take up color because you've essentially flattened the tooth of the paper. So that's part of the reason why I prefer to do it this way. So let me show you. Let me fix this paper, and then I'll show you how to get this done. So I'm back, and so what you do is you start off with just a light hand, and you're going to be using this light pressure that I showed you. So if you want to do this, you're just going to go in, and you're going to go in with your lightest pressure. And then as you see that, you almost can't see it. But then as you go in with your second layer, let's say this is your second layer, you're still going to maintain that same light pressure. And believe it or not, even though you're not pressing very hard and you're using a very light pressure, it's still going to leave a mark. Even though, you know, it almost feels instinctively like it shouldn't, it will. So as you can see here, you can see that it's already leaving a mark, you know, where I went. And then you can slowly continue to build up the layers. I think some people start with the lightest areas first. I like to start, as you can see here, I like to start with the darkest areas first. And, you know, I don't have very good hand-eye coordination. So this helps me to alleviate any mistakes that I'm certain to make by just starting off with the darkest section. But there's no rule, you know, this is supposed to be for fun and relaxation. So part of the reason why I like doing this is so that my egg looks more like an egg and less like a flat circle. So if you notice the egg that I did here, I think that it looks a little bit more alive than if I had just gone in and done it with just the yellow. So that's part of the reason why I like doing this, because I feel like it does make it look more alive. And you can see how I'm still pressing with this same light hand, but this circle is starting to really turn into something that is much more than just a circle. And if I kept doing that, and I was doing that with a little bit more care and attention, it would eventually look like this. And these two are sort of fascinating because they were both done with the same pressure and the same number of layers, except that with this one I used a variety of colors, and with this one I used just that one color. So one of the fun things is, once you get this hang of just laying down this like layer, is you can go back in and make it look even more, you know, you can see between these two how much more interesting and how your eye is sort of drawn to this one in particular because of those different colors. So then you can take that same skill and you can go back in, and you can go back in with a different color, and you're still laying down this light hand, but you can see almost right away how it's starting to take that other color, and it's starting to really sort of look a little bit more, I keep saying alive because I know there's an arty word for it, but I just don't know what it is. I don't know what the arty word is, but I'll find out what the arty word is. Realistic, that's the arty word. And then you can just take this in, and I don't know if you're able to see this because I'm having to do this through the cell phone. So this feels really weird to me to do this way, because I'm doing this like literally through the cell phone. I'm looking at the cell phone. But anyway, I'm not going to bore you by making you watch me sit here and color this for, you know, for however long it would take me to do this. So this is the color I was looking for. So you can go back in. Oh, and the other thing that I really, really love about doing it this way is that, let's say I kept using these browns right here. Let's say I kept using these browns, and I used this brown, and I said, as soon as I laid it down, I was like, you know what? I don't like it. I can either pick up the color, like I can either erase it, or I can just go back in with the original color, and eventually the brown will sort of fall into the background and be less visible, and I don't have to, you know, it's not as dangerous, shall we say, dangerous, as if like, you know, we're in a gun battle or something, but it's not as risky, that's the word. It's not as risky to lay down these light layers than if, say, I took it here and I just went in real dark with this brown, and then I was like, oh, I don't like how that looks at all. Then I'm kind of screwed. You know, like I can erase it, but it's never gonna look quite what it would if I had just gone in with a light hand and just slowly built up that brown. Like if I want to have a brown here, I can just slowly build it up. And then if I decide as I'm going with the brown that, you know what, I like this dark indigo after all. So if I like this dark indigo after all, so you can see the mistakes I'm making, because I literally don't have very good hand-eye coordination. You can see how it really starts to sort of come up like really nicely. Even though this is just a circle and I haven't done this up here, this section up here, which I would need to darken it to make it look more like this one. And then you can go back in, you know, whenever you're ready, and add shadows and do all that other stuff. And you can do that with the stuff that it's, you know, that with the stuff that you're coloring in. So if you buy this and you decide, like, you know, I want to shade this up here, and I'm not really worried about this because, like I said, I'm using a light hand, so I'm okay with, like, you just saw my hand just slip there. It's not a big deal. So I'm not gonna make you watch me. I'm not gonna make you watch me color. That's just silly. But anyway, I did want to illustrate to you what the effects and the benefits are to using a light hand and going over multiple layers, as opposed to using the darkest possible hand with just one or two passes. So by going with the lighter hand and going with more passes, you get more versatility and more options, as well as a sort of, you know, more space to make mistakes. And I am very, very prone to making a lot of mistakes, as you just saw. So I really like that ability. But anyway, I hope you found this video helpful, and please subscribe to my channel if you like this video, and please like the video if you like the video, and leave a comment below. If there's something you want to see, let me know, and I'll do my best to get it to you. And if you have any questions, also let me know. If you have comments or complaints, yes, if you have complaints, you can let me know too, and I'll do my best to address any complaints that you might have. So thank you, and enjoy, and I hope you like this video. Have a good day. Bye.